Welcome back, everyone. There goes the heat. All right. We are now live streaming, and Vince, may I please have a roll call now that we are back in public session?
Yes. Mrs. Denoya?
Here.
Mrs. Dillon?
Here.
Mrs. Dimes?
Here.
Is recognized as participating remotely. Mr. Arrico?
Here.
Mrs. Ramirez?
Here.
Mr. Rignetta?
Here.
Mrs. Volpe?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Wickberg?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we're going to move right into our comments from attending constituents on all subjects. Just a reminder, if you're going to come up to the podium to say something, please hit the button so that the green light on the microphone shows up, and please state your name and address for the record. Any comments? Come on up. I think if you just hit the power mute button.
And then hit it again, and then hold it.
Hold it, yep, there you go, you're on. And just your name and address for the record, please.
Kevin O'Brien, 18 The Enclosure. I've been here once before. I wrote earlier this month asking if it's possible for you folks to change your calendar dates for 2025 meetings going forward so they do not conflict with the town local government meeting. It'd be nice to be able to go. I go to those. I can't come here. Can only be at one time. I think it's great that you take the videos and share it with the public, so thank you for that. So that was my first ask. On a couple other points. The Colts Neck affordable housing obligation will result in 1,195 units being built for round 3 and 4. Plus the 360 for the Colts Neck Manor result in a total of 1,445 units being built in Colts Neck over the next 10 years. So the question comes in, is assuming 0.2 children per dwelling with 1,455 units, that's one child in every 5 apartments, you're looking at 291 more students, children, coming into the school board, under the school umbrella. If you don't like the number, cut it in half, and you're still looking at 145 more children coming into the school. How do you propose to deal with that? Do you have enough room? What else needs to happen for you to embrace 145 students? Not sure whether you're thinking about that. There is a meeting on January 14th from the planning board, which is going to be discussing. I've asked for numbers from the town for 6 months on how do we deal with this and what's the projection. Their planner has elected not to respond. So I just figured I'd share that with you. It's important not only for us, but for the residents as well. Coming back, I'm big on open and transparent. NJDEP wrote water consumption of 70 gallons per person. Well, considering 1,445 apartments, we're going to have a draw of 287,000 gallons a day on our water aquifer. So I'm just curious, if we have a significant drought like we have now, and there's 287 gallons getting pumped out, how do you folks deal with a crisis if the school, is there an emergency plan being considered if the aquifer goes down for the school? So that was another one. On the traffic, 1,455 units will generate 6.6 trips per day, or 3.5 million additional trips per year. That's 9,600 trips per day. A trip, you leave your house and go somewhere, that's 1 trip. You come home, that's 2. So the average dwelling will do 6.6 for an apartment. A home does 10. Just industry statistics. So just food for thinking about. The last one is, Wall and Marlboro have taken proactive steps on public awareness for theft and burglaries. If you go to the press release from the Colts Neck Police Department, it shows their press release is 4 years old. There's no date on it. There's no signature on it. For the safety of our students and for our residents, I think they could do a little bit better job in informing the residents, and I've asked for that to get done. So I'm not sure whether that could be done on a local level for the school children and become the ambassadors for their parents. I did that when I lived in Woodcliff Lake over water conservation and water pollution, and I turned the 6th grade class on environmental studies into ambassadors of goodwill for teaching their parents about recycling. So just food for thought on that one. And lastly, I have no political ambitions. I have no political views. I'm an independent. I appreciate everything that you do for the students. I have no students in the school district, but I'm happy to pay the funds to see that the kids get what they need. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of great questions. I don't want you to feel that we're not going back and forth, but I appreciate bringing all of that. You will see on our agenda this evening, under Buildings, Ground Safety, and Security, we are going to be touching base on the state-mandated affordable housing in Colts Neck, so there might be some discussion on some of the things that you brought up. And anything that you feel that we have not touched on, please feel free to reach out to the board, and we can answer some things maybe in a little bit more detail for you. You're so welcome. All right, any other comments? All right, being that there are none, we will close the public comment section of the meeting and move right along to our action items for approval. Just a reminder to the public, typically at our committee of the whole meetings, we won't be taking formal action on anything. However, there are some items that will be pressing, whether it's personnel items or things that have to get moved through because they're time sensitive. So unfortunately, these items we can't wait until our next meeting, which happens to be next week. So that's why you'll see some action items. So on that note, I'm looking for a motion to move action items 1 through 3 on the agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about action items 1 through 3?
I have a question.
Sure.
Silly one, but I'm going to ask it.
Never a silly question.
Substitute teacher, is that a certified teacher for that?
It is.
Or just did he actually, is it a certified teacher in a classroom?
Yes, it's a substitute teacher that we have. Joanne is Mrs. Shavers has been a long-standing substitute with us. So it was a certified teacher with us for many long terms.
And I remember the substitute teacher pay was quite low years ago, so they raised it commensurate with the responsibility. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That's a good question. Any other questions or comments?
Comment.
If I may.
Oh.
Whenever a teacher, we also have a period of time where, I fell into my own trap. Thank you. We also have a period of time where if a teacher is out for a period of time, we are required to have a certified teacher. It's 20 days, and then there's extensions to 40 days under extenuating circumstances, so that there's a continuity of instruction under the direction of a certified teacher. You're welcome.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Garibay and Mr. Marasco for answering my questions regarding the New Jersey CUSAC items and the LIEP that I reviewed today. So it took me a hot minute, but I was able to get through all of it, and so thank you for answering my questions.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, being that there are none. Vince, may I please have a roll call?
Yes.
Mrs. Dillon,
Yes.
Mrs. Dines,
Yes.
Mr. Harica,
Yes.
Mrs. Ramirez,
Yes.
Mr. Rignani,
Yes.
Mrs. Volpe,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
and Mr. Wickberg.
Yes.
The motion carried.
Thank you. Sorry, just writing at the same time. All right, we're going to move to the liaison reports. So let's start with Amy, PTO. I'm going to throw you out of order here.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't ready for you.
Oh, sorry, I know, sorry.
We have the upcoming events. So you have Frosty's Holiday Shop, which is December 7th at the primary school. Next week, they have the Harlem Wizard theme that's coming up over at the high school. That should be a great event. Doors open at 6 p.m. The event starts at 7. Those are the two that I know offhand because I didn't have my stuff in front of me.
Sorry.
A list of all the upcoming events can be found on coltsneckpto.com.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Amy? Yes, coltsneckpto.com.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it .org? Is it both?
Is it .com or .org? Amy.
.com, I believe. Hang on. Thanks for the question. Hang on. .org.
Oh, .org.
Okay,
Thank you.
And he was right. Thank you. All right, any questions or comments for Amy? No? All right. Parent Advisory Committee. Brenna, what do you have for us?
We have our next meeting is coming up next Thursday. We have a morning and evening session. The agenda went out today to anyone who's a member of the Parent Advisory Committee, and there's a little bit of homework there for you to review, and just submit some stuff ahead of time if you'd like, and I believe that's it.
Okay.
You know, we were talking about just how we wanted to handle Parent Advisory Committee going forward. Is that supposed to be discussed right now? I don't remember what we said.
We can,
Since it's work session, I don't,
Yeah.
maybe you want to think about setting somebody up for next year so that it's not just.
Absolutely.
Because really, it's just been Allison and me there, so I don't think anybody's really familiar.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
if anybody's interested, maybe throw your hat in.
There you go. All right. Thank you for putting that out there, Brenna.
But yeah, I suggest coming to the meeting
Yeah.
on Thursday, and maybe that would be helpful.
Thank you very much. All right. And a follow-up question for you from me will be, has anyone else reached out about, okay,
Just me.
okay, just you.
I'd like to join.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Brenna? No? All right. Seniors, Kevin.
Seniors, our meeting is,
Oh, you're, sorry.
next meeting is December 4th at Conover Road Firehouse Number 2. We've been good attendance and conversations with the president. I always reiterate our desire for the seniors that attend our meetings. They're our taxpayers. Even though they don't have students in our district, I think it's important for them to attend and see where their money's being spent. And being fiscally responsible, I tell them, but we still, on the same token, we want the best education for the kids in our town. That's why we moved here. They have a holiday lunch at Christmas on December 16th at the Molly Pitcher. They're going on a big trip to Lancaster and this coming month. And that's it for seniors.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Kevin? All right. I'll touch on Township Committee. So there is lots going on. We have Breakfast with Santa coming up on December 14th and 15th. There's both 9 and 11 a.m. sessions that you can attend. Week before that, on December 7th, there is the tree lighting at Town Hall at 4 p.m. Next Saturday, the 24th, Saturday, November 24th, we have Coffee with a Cop at the Colts General Store and Deli. That will be from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. On December 8th, sorry, I'm going way out of order here with the dates here. December 8th, we have the Colts Neck Historical Preservation Committee has the Country Christmas at the Montrose School between 1 and 4. And there is a reorganizational meeting on January 3rd at 5 p.m. And then also in January, worth putting on our calendars now, is on the 14th, they have a planning board meeting that is open for public input on specifically affordable housing. So if that's something that is important, make sure you get out there and attend. That's at 7:30 p.m. And of course, they are still looking for volunteers for all of their boards, committees, and commissions. So you can find more information about that on the website. Any questions for me on Township Committee? Okay. All right. Angelique, can you give us an update for the student representatives? Do you have anything?
Dr. Garibay sent something out recently. I like for her to actually explain. She sent out, an email to me, and it's moving along very well. I'm so proud of that program, and I believe the kids are really enjoying it. And once again, I always like to thank you and Dr. Rigby. I know you guys are putting the brunt of the work into this along with the kids, so thank you.
They're doing the work with us, so which is great. And so we will have reports from 3 of our student representatives next Wednesday,
Yep.
who will be coming to give us some updates on the work. So I don't want to steal their,
Yeah, no, I don't wanna
steal their
steal their
thunder.
thunder either,
And
yeah.
then reaching out to them as well. And I know Mr. Rugnut is going to be talking about some things that we want to engage them in throughout the year as well, because we had spoken briefly that it's also about concerns and how we can engage them to keep their concerns at the forefront and being representatives to that. So putting mechanisms in place and helping them to supporting them as young leaders in the buildings and how to build consensus and get opinions and things like that. So we're working through it, and they've been great. So I'm excited for the board to have updates from the representatives at the next board meeting next week. We have 3 that we know will be reporting.
Thank you very much. Any questions for student representatives? No? Okay. All right. Allison, do you have anything for state and county school boards?
December 5th is the county meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Allison? All right. Okay. All right. So I think think that wraps up all of those reports. That brings us to the committee of the whole work session. So we will move right into the ad hoc committee for the arts, sports, and extracurriculars. Vinny? What do you got?
All right. Just give you guys some updates first. The Colts rec basketball for pre-K through 8th grade here taking place at Conover Elementary. The early registration's over, but you can still register. There'll be one practice per week, also one clinic per week per age group, which usually takes place on Mondays or Tuesdays. The practice will be scheduled by your coach, and there will be games on Saturdays from December through March, including the playoffs. And if you'd still like to register, you can go to coltsnecksportsfoundation.com. As far as middle school is concerned, the girls' first game will be December 12th, 3:45 to 5:45 at Neptune Middle School, and the boys' first game for the middle school will be at home, 3:45 to 5:45 on Tuesday, December 12th, I think. Let's write that down. And then, yeah, his website, yeah. Just go, you can go to the school website, the school website for that. Colts Neck Sports Foundation has a wrestling program for new participants and first and second year wrestlers, 1st to 5th grade, boys and girls, 6 to 11-year-olds. This past Monday was the introductory night, but registration is still open, and it'll be Mondays and Wednesdays from 5:45 to 6:45 at the Colts Neck High School Wrestling Room. The registration is $80, and to sign up, you can go to go.teamsnap.com/forms/453892. And advanced wrestlers can participate in joint Marlboro and Colts Neck program, which you can do so by emailing Carl, CarlSammarco @me.com for registrations. This Saturday is the flag football Super Bowl, taking place at 8 a.m. At 5 Points Road Park. So if you can make it, go. It's a really fun time. For the last few years, I've been involved in it, so it's a fun time for all the kids.
Those are all your updates?
Sorry?
Those are all the updates?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Jessica, may
Yes.
I just mention a few things on the building and grounds real quick
Well-
before we get into the,
We're still on the ad hoc.
okay.
Yeah, we're not at building and ground yet. All right, so we have review of and discuss the current charter for the ad hoc committee per the bylaw. So is there something specific on that? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So I know Mr. Rugnett and I were speaking about, ad hocs are temporary committees, right? But we still feel like we're understanding the role of the committee as it's evolving, right? And so one of the things we just wanted to go back and say to the board together was just basically review what the purpose of the committee was as per our bylaws, which said the regulation, the ad hoc committee for arts, sports, and extracurricular activities shall be appointed by the board president and composed of up to 4 board members, with one of them being designated as chair, as Mr. Rugnett is. The mission of the ad hoc committee, and we know we've moved away from committees, so we can tweak this, shall be to research and make recommendations regarding arts, sports, and any other extracurricular activities for the enhancements of students' pre-K through 8 school experience. At their discretion, the committee shall engage with professionals, teachers, parents, students, and other stakeholders in an attempt to enhance the programs currently in place and to develop and recommend new related programs. So we want to make sure as a board that's still relevant moving into the new year, right? And that we're still in our exploratory phases of things, and that we still value that mission and purpose of the ad hoc, right? And then coming back to it, how do we want to accomplish that goal? So Mr. Rugnett and I were talking about potentially designing some surveys to parents and at the elementary school and middle school, knowing though we can do a lot of asks and say how are with regards to timing and that, but there are limits, right? Because we can say, hey, we'd love to have this type of drawing club, but we know from conversations at the dais that's pending upon staff availability, right? And so we don't always have all of the resources, but it can help shape some things, right, and inform. So I would also like us to work we can engage staff to help design a survey and questions we might have asked regarding coaching availability, except all the things. We can work together to develop a survey that we would put out to get information and input from our parents about our extracurricular offerings, related to arts, all of the things that go into it, those types of offerings. So that was a step that I think that, if I missed something, Mr. Regna, just let me know, but that was the next step we were looking to make for the committee, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just to inform some of the things that guide the practice of the committee itself. Then, we were talking about, we put under here that we thought, oh, sorry.
No, sorry, I thought Allison had that.
Then also for any questions on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just, if we're moving to committee of a whole, I'm unclear as to why we need this ad hoc committee. I see value in putting out a questionnaire to parents and teachers and figuring out staffing opportunities and things like that, but I don't understand the need for this committee. Just saying.
It's a valid question. Can I say something, and then I'll let you hop in, Vinny, if you don't mind? So with a committee of a whole, the way that ad hoc committees work, they are designed to be created or established when there's a need for it. So in the beginning of this year, January, as a board, majority board voted that there was a need for an ad hoc committee. Yes, we've done away with the individual committees, but we might still need to, for example, during budget time, be putting together an ad hoc committee specifically for budget stuff. That's when the ad hoc kind of comes together. And then, yes, if there's a need for there to be further development, of something, then there's a time and place for that. But right now, it still is an ad hoc. So its purpose is still to see if there's more that we can do to enhance those areas within our district. At least that's how I understand it after speaking with Tim Tehan as well, about what the purpose of committee of a whole boards creating ad hoc committees. And you can correct me or jump in there.
No correction. I think it's about level setting too, because I think when new board members come on and everything, it's about knowing what we do and what's offered, and then having an interest, like in the music program, like a deep vested passion for that and bringing that. So having a big picture and allowing us that time to put it together and say, all right, well, where can we, with the input of our staff too, other ideas that are coming from them as well. Like I want to, in terms of a community, in terms of that whole child education that we offer and extending, it's about level setting, finding out the information, putting it in one place, and then where can we go from there? It's actually part of our strategic plan. What else can we be doing to engage children? So it's a perfect way to bring it in and tie the purpose of the committee into our long-range strategic plan.
Can I just have Vinny say something quick?
Yeah. To me, without having a committee like this, I think the arts and sports and extracurricular activities can get lost behind the cracks if we're not talking about it on a somewhat regular basis.
I just had a suggestion. Maybe going forward, you could, because I know there's a lot of updates about the Sports Foundation, maybe, I'm not saying instead of this ad hoc committee, but maybe you could just have a Sports Foundation liaison, kind of like a PTO liaison. That way those updates can kind of go there and you can focus on the actual district extracurriculars in the committee, because I don't know, I think, it just seems like maybe that's a better place for it.
I'd like to just chime in with the ad hoc, and like I said, I don't want to make more work for us since we have a heavy load already, but with the Manor project, do you think an ad hoc committee is suitable to start for that? Even though we are working as a CAL meeting, do you think there should be a committee of, because I know Kevin's, kind of has some ideas, he's, leading with some ideas with that. Should that be set up, or should we all do that at a CAL meeting?
Well, for the purpose of staying on the agenda, I'd like to stick with, right now, just for ad hoc committee for the arts, sports, and extracurriculars. But on the topic of creating more ad hoc committees, if as needed, that's something that we could potentially talk about. I think that kind of maybe has a better place for it under buildings and ground safety and security, whether or not, we want to move forward with that. But
Yeah, it's just a suggestion. We don't have to go that route. I just figured, there's probably a lot coming down the pike with that, and it may be extensive time to, be speaking at a CAL meeting when maybe a committee could be working behind the scenes and then bring it forward. Like I said, it's just a suggestion. I certainly don't want to add more workload to everybody's plate.
Anything else for touching on the recommendations for the surveys for the ad hoc committee for the arts, sports, and extracurriculars?
I know, just Dr. Garabay, would you want to write something up for that, and then we'll take a look at it? And see if
Absolutely. I'll work with the staff to put something together and say that here's something we think is, will give us good information. We don't want to just a survey. We want to make sure we're getting purposeful, meaningful information that can help shape, that can inform our decisions or recommendations going forward. So probably we'd look to do that at the start of the, next year once the fall season's underway, and then in the 2025. We look to send that out and get some input, because that's when we're going to be shaping budget and making decisions about what's available and all the things that we do. Okay? And the last thing was about the 60th anniversary of Cedar Drive. If you remember back a few years ago, we had a really nice community celebration for the 50th anniversary of Conover Road Elementary School, and Cedar Drive's having a big birthday this year as turning 60. So I know that Dr. Rigby had a faculty meeting and talked about interest. He's been speaking with me about community and whatnot, and we thought this would be a place. I had mentioned to Mr. Rugnetta about board involvement. I believe the date is set for April 24th with put a vision of tours and then an evening with dinner, awards, speakers, and stuff to highlight, the community. And there's a lot of people who came through the Colts Next Schools when it was historically the Atlantic School, right? Before Cedar Drive was even born, but it was still education here in Colts Neck. So we're focusing on Cedar Drive, but we know that there's a lot of history and love for that building and the experiences that have been created there. So we're expecting some really great fun, things to come about with the planning of that. So put that on your date, and it should a lot more to come. And I look forward that we think that this might be a good way to engage the students, the representatives, in looking at this as well.
Yeah, I'll love to get some ideas from our student liaisons and about their ideas, what they could do to help celebrate.
So much more to come on that.
Any questions about any of that comments? All right. So now we will move on to buildings and ground safety and security. Kevin, Vincent Marasco, I'll let you guys take the floor there.
With the number one there.
With the advent of affordable housing, the units are going to have a significant impact on our school district. I think we should long-range financially plan for it, starting now. There's been studies in the 2022, which is on our website, commissioned by Sundance, I believe. According to their study, I think they're projecting an 18.5% increase with 185 students peaking in 2026. Who knows? Honestly, how many kids are going to be moving into the district? It could be 180, it could be 200, it could be 300, it could be 500. Round 4 was just released. I think we're over 100 units. I just want to make sure, long story short, we have a conversation as a board and plan for this. The numbers could be off. The study may be wrong. I just don't want to be prepared for the district to meet the challenges of increased population growth and make sure these kids get the best education. I don't care where they're moving. I don't care if it's affordable housing. Every kid in this district deserves the best education. I don't want to be prejudiced against the affordable housing. As a school board member, I think it's my obligation. I think the board's obligation is to make sure teachers are ready and the kids learn. So, start off with your intro. I just wanted to start with that statement.
So what does that look like as far as the district goes, Mary Jane? I'm sure you can speak to this better. How does a district, knowing that we're having more units being built, or if there's a larger construction project going on in a town, what does that look like from a school district as far as what we need to do?
Sure. Jason, do you want to jump in real quick?
Yes. So in regards to the manor and the 360 units with the 72 affordables, it's 360 altogether. I think the last gentleman who spoke publicly, I think the numbers there that, yeah, well, for all intents and purposes, just isolating out the manor because that's going to be the immediate need right now for the township. I mean, you're looking at probably maybe a year and a half to 2 years for that project to be fully completed. So, I mean, and we're going to be in finance tonight talking about the 25-26 budget. I mean, it's right around the corner. So, in anticipation, you have 360 units. Even the average of 0.2 per 5 households is extremely low. I mean, you know, and very, very, I think, being ultra conservative. You know, if in a couple years we're looking at a potential of over 100 students because of the manor, I mean, I believe the school budget average per child right now is what, about 28,000 per year, right around there. Okay, so, you know, it's to project those numbers, if we're around 120, 130 kids, we can multiply that by 28,000, and we can look at, you know, we can roughly look at the increase. Now,
And if I can jump in for 1
Okay,
second,
yep.
more students brings that number down, because the costs are the cost for certain things, and yes, more students can potentially increase costs, but the more students you have, you're dividing that number of taxpayer, on the taxpayer's guide for educational spending, you're dividing that number by more students.
Sure.
So the more students you have, the lower the cost per pupil for certain things. So, for example, I mean, I'll use my own self. An administrative salary gets divided by more
right.
because you have more kids.
Right.
So that's like in terms of that.
Okay, I mean, that's good to know. And I believe, you know, the grant with the single-family homes and the affordable housing that's in the grant, I think that would be a great stepping stone in looking in that, you know, neighborhood and see how many children are in there. Now, I think from the numbers, I think there's about 240 units in the grant, roughly, I believe, around there. And I believe that's with the single-family homes and the condos that are there as well. I think it's somewhere around there. Okay, so this is going to be an extra 120 units in the manor. So I mean, if we just if we know how many students from the Grand are in the now, we can almost look and then project what 360 units is going to do, and use that formula from the Grand and do, you know, go over with the 360 units at the manor. So, and I think that'll.
I don't know that we even need to do that. We have.
Well, Vince,
But we have companies that, you know, that
Well,
we
right.
have the report that was done. We don't need to sit here and assume and play.
I understand that,
A
but
guessing game. There's.
right, but you know, a lot of the companies, you know, I would like to see that data. Obviously, if it's,
We have it on.
you know,
Yeah, we have it on the drive.
yeah, if it's, yeah. So, but again, I think we're gonna, I think we will have a better estimate.
It's in Mary Jane's update as well.
Okay,
If you want
okay.
to pull it up.
Yeah, the demographic, and I'm going to let, if I can, Mr. Maresco chime in for a little bit with regard to what we're
Okay.
looking at. You know, but I'll start off by saying enrollment projections take place every year. We're always looking at enrollment, and it will be very soon. December, January is when the administrative team comes together. We look at trends. We look at what's in kindergarten coming up. We project what those enrollments are. We look at our trends. How many new kindergartners do we get? And we look at the demographic study, but one of the things we also look at, we look to our friends at Naval Weapons Station Earl, we look at change in stations, we look at a lot of different things.
Sure.
And we also look at classification rates of students, because it's not just about how many students, it's what the students' needs are that are coming in that will also dictate what decisions and recommendations we make that get put in towards the budget. So that's like a starting point. But long range, though, this is something we've been looking at, and that the only thing that's missing, and I know Mr. Maresco will talk to this, in that 2022 study doesn't include the 2 rounds. They had not been approved yet. So what's in that 22 study is not current as to what's been proved and moved forward. So go ahead, if Vince wants to speak to it further.
The demographer did make some projections,
Right.
estimates, but at the time that this was produced, those projects weren't actually like approved
Okay.
yet.
Right.
The manor.
Just the manor.
Just the manor.
Right. And that's going to be the immediate. That is going to be the immediate effect on taxpayers. Is going to be the manor. So yes. Okay. And do you remember what those projections were?
So I have it pulled up now, and
Okay.
and I had encouraged, you know,
Yes.
board members to, you know, certainly review this
Right.
study. It was some time ago, it was 2022. But overall, it looked as if the Sundance 5-year total projection yielded 82 students in total.
82?
From all 3 projects over the projection period, over the occupancy schedule, which
Yeah.
projected out to 2026.
Yeah.
So really, it becomes, and this is,
Yeah, I think that's extremely optimistic.
well, again, his study uses certain standards
Okay.
and cohort rates
Okay.
and information from Rutgers University based
yeah.
on,
I think they're underestimating.
yeah.
I think they're underestimating the fact that to be, in the Colts Neck school systems is one of the reasons why I'm here, right? I'm here because I wanted my children to be in the same school system that I grew up in, from 1995 to 2001 when I graduated Colts Neck High School, right? So I think the demand for the manor for families is going to be very high. I mean, Colts Neck school systems are excellent. They're excellent for a reason. And I believe that, 82 students for 5-year projection, I mean,
Well, and I think
that's
what you're saying-
extremely,
Well, and there's some missing information because, again, some of those projects weren't approved. So is there a way for us to get an updated survey?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can, commission one at any time the board feels it's
Right.
of value.
Right, if we
and-
think
and
that that's
important.
something, if we're concerned about that.
Right, in addition to the qualitative type
Right.
information that the board may want to consider, and then how do you use that information?
Right,
Another
right.
thing we have to understand is that these projections are made, and it's not as if our district, when you look at our capacity, is we're at the scene. It's not the case.
We're not at capacity.
right, right.
We take on students every year just from sheer move-ins in the
Right.
township.
How far away from capacity would you say we are right now?
So I don't have an exact number, Vincent. I think if we do have, that's part of the data that's incorporated into the long-range facilities plan. They did what's called a functional, a capacity study. Okay.
Yeah, don't hold me to it. I think the capacity of the district at its largest was at 1,500, was when we had that was the highest enrollment we were, when we had full housing historically on Naval Weapons Station Earl. So that was when all the units were still intact and we had full things. That was the capacity. That was the catalyst for the building of the primary school.
1,500
1,500 children. Correct.
From pre-K to 8th.
Correct.
So right now we have a little over 1,000.
And that was with, right now we've been hovering steady at 1,000.
There's some good historical information in the demographic study. It goes
Correct.
back and charts out the peak enrollment
Okay.
years and how it's
Correct.
been declining and kind of leveled off.
And to a point that I had a conversation with Mr. Walsh about as well, we had one in 2015 or 14 that had us projected at under 700 students. And that was when the conversation about closing the elementary school came about in the community. And we went in a different direction. We did it for other reasons.
Right.
So we did it for other reasons because they were looking at downsizing. We didn't go that course for reasons, and so now we're in a different place. So we have to kind of take it with what we're doing with the programming. The housing is definitely an influence at this point in time.
Right.
That we want to keep our eye on. Can we be absorbing students if they're coming in gradually? We can and we do. We do
Yes,
every year.
that
Is a thing. Now that said, and what we were talking about a little bit beforehand, was it's not just about the quantity, it's a quality. Right now, we have around 20 students in classes all the way up through 5th grade, lower in the primary levels, and there's a reason for that.
Yes.
That's an educational and financial decision we make for our students and for our community,
Right.
right?
So being proactive, I'm kind of like a worst-case scenario type of guy, especially when I run my company. I always I never look at the best-case scenario. I look at the worst-case scenario and how I'm going to be able to navigate financially and do everything, right? So a worst-case scenario is if the manor's built 2 years, let's say, you know, instead of, let's say we have an immediate 200 children that's just going to, that's enrolled in 2026, like in September of 2026, and we've got 200 children. I mean, what's that gonna, you know, what's that gonna do, and what's that gonna look like, and would we be prepared for something like that?
Well, if they're not all in kindergarten, we would be okay.
Right, right.
So we would, but, and I'm not taking it lightly.
Right.
My recommendation though, and I know Amy had her, I think Amy signaled to ask a question. And then one of the things would be is that, as Mr. Marasco had just said, you know, we are charged with making data-driven decisions. So I think it may behoove us, if we're having questions, and to bring Mr. Walsh's point to start this conversation, go back to Sundance and say, we might need a little update. There's been some additional information coming here. Commission that, you know, request, I would ask Mr. Marasco to reach back out to them to say, can we get some updates here? It may not require a whole new, you know, investment in a big, huge thing, because some of the things are going to be, they'll obviously update, but we may be able to just get an addendum, you know, to the current one that just basically takes into consideration all the new developments that have happened.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if that's something that we would agree on as a board, as a recommendation from the committee, from the board.
Okay.
Yes? And then Allison.
I think at the minimum, we should agree on commissioning that study, the first thing. And Dr., the optimum, you said the class sizes are 20.
That's what we've been doing. Yeah, that's what, I mean, and less at the primary. You know, some years we can't help it. Sometimes we'll have an influx of students, and the class will be we're fortunate we spend a lot of time on individualized personal relationship, developing that rapport with students, and that's difficult to do in classes of 25, 30, you know, 30. It's difficult. Having taught in that environment of 30 plus students 5 times a day, it's tough. It's tough. So to keep the educational integrity of what we want, you know, does it happen where we've gone up to 22 or 23? That's not ideal. Yes, it does, though. But those are decisions we have to make with regards to how we allocate our resources.
Amy?
So I know that Jason and I made a comment of, you know, unfortunately, worst case scenarios, we could get maybe 200 students at a time, but I haven't looked directly at the plans for it. Are they planning on building several buildings? Because typically they wouldn't all be open for rentals at once, and we could somewhat get an idea of how many students are coming in as each building is built. You know, looking at some of their other plans, some of them look like multiple buildings where perhaps they'll start renting one and then start leasing another. So it will come in as a rolling basis when they start, and we would have a better idea, right?
There are going to be separate buildings built. How many, I don't know. You know, I could find out easily. But I don't know if, usually in a complex like the Manor, once one building is completed and the Colts Township grants the C of O to the builder, then they may start renting the complex out. But that's another question for the township that I'll have to ask.
Yeah, I think that's a good, because then it'll give us an idea of if it's, because it looks like some of their projects are one large building, where obviously that would be more concerning that we could get a bigger influx at once. But if they're doing, let's say, 5 or 6 buildings, chances are all 6 are not going to be up at least all at one time, that there is a rolling basis, so we would have a better idea of what we're looking at.
Yeah,
in terms of children and, you know, and better planning.
Yes, I believe there are going to be separate buildings that are going to be built. So it's just a matter of how many.
Right.
I mean, if it's you know, if it's 4, then it's going to be a lot quicker, you know, with the influx of children. But if it's 14, it's going to be a different story.
Right, certainly it'll roll through. I mean, I've worked for, you know, a builder, and it was, you know, you usually do one phase at a time, and try to fill it up and then move on to the next. So hopefully, I mean, that would be a good case scenario for us to at least be able to manage the influx of children.
Was that with Matzel and Mumford?
Is that something that Sundance would take into account, or they would find out that information before, as they do their study?
Yes, it's something that they usually will fold in, and we can speak to them about things that we're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also, I think, relevant to consider, like, the timing of this as you're
Yeah.
talking about it, right? The more you get into the development of the project, the more reliable information is for particularly a demographer, I would
Yes.
suggest.
Yes, I'll talk to,
And again, I don't know exactly when the project is started. or
well, it already
what's
did. It
the
already,
Fisher
it
Brown.
already has started.
They are
Yeah.
at.
They had the groundbreaking, I think, like over the
Summer, right? It was a summer.
And they already, if you drove by the site, which I have,
So
yeah.
I think the board should ask themselves or evaluate, what is the importance for the next school year? What is the sort of the immediate importance and then the
Yeah, I think
the
it goes into
longer
like our
term,
long-range
Yeah.
planning too.
you know,
So I think.
you don't want good information to go to
Yeah,
waste for.
right. I'll find out exactly what he plans on building, and then we'll figure out how many separate buildings are going to be built. And then I think that will give us a great gauge on if there's going to be an immediate influx of children or if there is not if it's going to be gradual over the next 2 years or if it's going to just be all at, pretty much the same time.
Well, is the board in favor of us moving forward with reaching out to Sundance to see what that looks like? I'm sure there's a fee associated with that, right? And getting an amendment and all that, so.
It doesn't
So,
hurt to
yeah.
reach out.
Reach out and
have a
find out,
conversation.
yeah, and then whether or not it's on the next committee of the whole, because I don't know that we'll have that before our meeting in a week. Can I just go to Allison and then Brenna? I'm sorry, poor Allison's been sitting over there.
Mr. Marasco and Dr. Garabay, what communications have you had with the township regarding this affordable housing for stage 3, which is what we're in, which is the Kushner property, and then moving forward, stages 4 and 5, which have now been released? Is the township, and I apologize, I'm not up on this, but I'm not aware of the township going back to the state and suing to lower that number like they did in round 3, right? So what, and do we know, are those numbers set? Are 4 and 5 set? And that ends up being long-range planning, and there are sites all around town for those structures. We're all aware of that. That was just my questions. Like, what information can you get to give to Sundance to say, like, here we go, now let's update
The
it?
beauty of having a company that are demographers is that they know the information to seek out for the information that we want. And so they'll take all of that into consideration. The most recent information was the report that was published by the township in May of last year. That is the most current information, with regards to updates. I know it's always a work in progress. It's always part of their conversations. And when they feel that something is impactful, we've had that relationship. I know that Ms. Marasco has spoken with Mrs. Capristo, and has that open line of communication when things are coming around. So it's a partnership, and they're working on it. So I am not, we're not blindsided at this point in time by anything, but we're in it, talking about it.
Just a quick thing. I think you weren't on Buildings and Grounds with me, right, when we first started? So I was on the committee when that report came out, and just, I don't know, my opinion, and I don't know how expensive the reports are. I just think a second opinion would probably behoove you down the road, because part of the
A second
study.
opinion from a different company?
Yeah, because I just think it is slightly subjective. There are some, yes, you're gathering a lot of information, but there are some projections that just, I remember feeling like, I don't know how he got there, but I would just be curious to know another opinion, and I don't know. I don't know what that
Can we
costs,
look
but I
into
just
that?
think you might
Absolutely.
be curious.
There's other demographers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just think
Vince, if
it's
you
always
could give
nice
us
to
some more
compare.
information on that too, just to present to the board for another option.
Vince, is there any
Appreciate
way
that, Brenna.
with that survey to ask to any projections or estimates of the age groups that they think will be coming in? Because if there are clusters, good to know that.
It's part of, I think it's, yeah, well.
Yeah, they look at birth rates.
because
That's
they
one of the
look
things
at
they do.
by the
Yeah.
cohorts. So I'm just looking at one of the pages now, and it just basically concluded that the 82 additional K to grade 12 students, or 57 K to grade 8, which is us, within the Colts next schools, and 57 is equivalent of 6 to 7 students per grade level. That means anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was all based on birth rates and,
Absolutely.
so there was a lot of information
Yeah.
into it. But yeah, they definitely broke it down by
Right.
expected
Cohort
age.
survival methodology of projecting.
So just to be clear, moving forward, what we're looking is doing, getting information to bring back to the board for the December, if not in advance, COW, to be able to say, here's what it is, here's the information we have on commissioning, a follow-up addendum, and/or another opinion.
And we can go with a different company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Okay, all right, we'll move forward from there.
Yes. All right, next item. That was just number 1, right? Okay.
That was number 1.
Just making sure I'm on the right page here.
I'll
All right.
jump to, okay, yes. I'll
Good.
get into, number 2 is really about, as we begin reviewing our facilities priorities, we'll be evaluating certain items and making choices in conjunction with the overall 25-26 budget development. These discussions will be ongoing and shared with the board as we go along. So I'm going to highlight things that we've had on our facilities radar, and again, may be a consideration for next year's budget. And they range from smaller maintenance repair type projects to projects that are in our long-range facilities plan, thereby allowing the use of capital reserve funds, depending on the type of project. So some of the things, by the way, and/or impact aid reserve funds, because impact aid reserve has quite a bit of flexibility in the use of those funds. So some of the considerations include, number 1, replacement of critical roofing sections on the elementary and middle school buildings that are not already taken care of through the ESIP project. As you know, we had a roofing evaluation study a couple years back, and that pinpointed some of the more critical areas that need replacement. A lot of the sections that are being replaced are due to the fact that we are including solar panels as part of the ESIP. So we have to first improve the condition of the roof, and that is ongoing there. So that's a big building envelope type infrastructure concern there. Another is replacement of HVAC components here at the administration building. It's all original equipment except for, I think, one condenser that we replaced on that side of the building. It's all 30-year-old equipment. Additionally, this building is in need of a fire alarm system. It does have fire suppression in the basement to handle the downstairs, but if there was ever an issue upstairs, there would be no call-out notification to fire services. The building was not built with that. We have fire extinguishers, but that's it, not an alarm system. Okay, and then a couple items here that pertain to elementary school and middle school. We have in our long-range plan replacement of the original school building windows. We know those in both of the buildings are original in many of the wings. Replacement of the original casework and bookcases. Many of the staff can speak to some of the casework in the classrooms that are, 60 years old approximately, that are primarily of wood and are very much in need of replacement at this point. Replacement of original classroom doors and the associated hardware. That's evident in, again, middle school, elementary school. We have also the replacement of the electrical main switchgear at the elementary school. We've noted that that piece of equipment is basically at its life expectancy limit. However, we are still able to render parts for that equipment, but it's still something that should be addressed. And finally, we have updating or replacement of lockers and science labs at the middle school. Some of these items, again, have more history behind them, mostly due to the failed referendums in past years. So a lot of these things just mentioned have been long-standing and were part of the plan since then. Okay, so I think that's my discussion on number 2.
Vince, are these all capital improvement?
They are all of a capital nature, yeah. In other words, part of those discussions at budget time would be making those sort of delineations between, something that's in our normal operating budget, considered a repair type thing. I'm thinking of smaller projects, but most of these are larger capital items.
Right, and
Correct.
so,
So we will be discussing them more in depth with administration, seeing what is really a priority, in conjunction using our facilities manager, those kinds of inputs, and just the budget overall. That's another thing. Something may not warrant a quote, emergency for the next school year. So we may say, all right, with this item, we can see that being done in the next 3 years.
right,
Those are
so,
the discussions we're
so
having. But I'm just highlighting some of those.
these are the top ones for you.
Those are, again, things that have been longer standing
Understood,
on our long-range plan.
understood. So,
They don't just
And-
disappear because we don't want to.
understood,
about 'em.
understood. And
They're
now,
still there.
what are, we have some money in capital reserves. So, can I ask how much we have in capital reserves?
You could, but I can't give you the exact
Okay,
number.
that's
because
fine.
I have too many numbers.
Okay,
It's floating
understood,
around.
but like,
However, but yeah, you raise a point in that, be aware that the board had contributed, $6 million of its reserve funds towards the
ESIP.
towards the current ESIP.
Mhm.
So
we have less.
and you'll hear about some of these other things when we get to finance.
Very good, thank you.
And maybe I missed it, but is there a list of costs associated with these projects
So,
somewhere? Is that,
Good question, yes.
Okay.
It's part of what we need to estimate.
yeah, I know in the
within
past, we
within
always
our
would,
LRFP.
look at
Yes,
the
and
numbers.
those estimates,
Yeah,
we account for various escalations in
right.
prices, inflation,
Yeah.
all of that has to kind of hit the.
And
But
you guys,
you don't really come to that until you
you're in
go
finance
out
too.
and right, you'll get a proposal from an architect
Mm-hmm.
with rough numbers based on market conditions, and then when you actually go out to bid,
Yeah,
and the
it's so
project is
different
struck,
not having
that's what-
committees, because we would,
That's
look
what
at the
you'll be
numbers
approving.
in buildings and grounds, and then it would go to finance.
but
now
you
it's
know,
like kind of
again-
one big thing, so I just was curious.
And if I can jump in, there's some wish list items from the building principals that have been going on for some time. New lockers at CDMS, science labs. These are all, big numbers that all match the learning environment that we have to also start to bring in back into the conversation, because they're long-standing wish list things that when you come to strike a budget in a percentage where we're looking to be at, or what's manageable, or what the board wants to approve, those are things that come out of the bucket, because they're not necessarily deemed as an emergent project, of the nature, but there's certainly things that we have, on the list that we want to accomplish for the students in their environments. Okay.
And just one more thing, if I may, just because we're sort of listing these things out, and number 3 is actually, consider that another, item on that list that we are anticipating proposing as a consideration for next year's budget, because it is I would say it's a need right now. This is involving our alarm systems across the school actually all 5 buildings, and it's to
Well, as a security, for more detail, we'll talk about it in
we'll talk about it more,
executive.
but it has to do with streamlining the equipment to make it all part of the same manufactured equipment, and it'll operate kind of seamlessly. Cameras, sensors, door access, that whole thing.
So these are items that I think, again, as we move forward in talking about budget season, I think we need to pull out, and perhaps this is when it's appropriate for us to have an ad hoc committee organized for us to then come together, have that meeting, and then bring that information back to the full board, because it sounds like there are a lot of other considerations that need to go into that. So moving forward, I think that we should start mentally preparing for some of us to be volunteering some additional time to be part of that, to have those more in-depth conversations, especially as they relate to some security concerns. Yes, Kevin?
Does that fall under finance?
Well, when it
I
comes
don't
to,
see why we need an ad hoc, and just under a finance committee, look at these proposed budget items for
Right.
25, 26.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm saying. So as we move closer into the budget, there's going to have to be an ad hoc committee that looks at these things through a, a little bit deeper of a lens there. Exactly. Any other questions for items 1 through 3 under buildings and grounds? All right. Vince, can you take us through an update for number 4? Or Kevin, whoever has the update.
Maybe, I think it was
Yes.
Mr. Walsh's question.
Mr. Walsh.
So we,
All right.
yeah, I mean, I can just,
Do you want me to talk about it?
sure.
Okay, so we left the discussion on September 11th with regards to a recommendation from one of our student representatives that came about last year regarding urinal panels and at the middle school. Our 8th grade bathroom currently has them. So what we're doing right now is talking about it through the lens of getting, and for that meeting discussion, we got some pretty quick quotes on it. If you remember, there was plastic versus metal. There was a lot of discussion about it. So we're getting better quotes and having it revised because as we were talking, Mr. Walsh and I had touched base about looking at maybe streamlining and wanting to get the temperature of the board that we're all on the same page with regards to, we're looking at, are we still wanting to move forward with it? That's number 1. Number 2, are we looking to do it in this year, which is an unbudgeted, based on that type of thing? That's another question. Or looking to add next year and incorporate it into the 25-26 budget, or and the scope. And I believe we had talked about, are we looking at just Cedar Drive? Because the bathrooms that are there in the boys' locker room, there are no urinals, they're just stalls. All of the bathrooms do have stalls with closable doors, so that's the other piece of it as well. So I think we just, Mr. Marasco and I were looking for direction from the board to kind of bring the conversation to a close and put us in a direction of where we want to go.
All right. Who wants to jump in on that one?
I just wanted to be responsive to the student liaison in 8th grade.
Of course.
I wanted to give them all due respect and attention on the point they brought up, and that's how we got into the urinals. So I certainly would maybe just limit it to Cedar Drive, the school, and square away that concern, and not go
See what
full
that looks
scope and see what it looks like. That's my thought.
Angelica.
Yes, I definitely don't believe that the primary and elementary, it's necessary to have them. I do believe, that the middle school, should have them. I like to move forward. It was addressed by the student liaison. I hate to, not make an accommodation, at least one lavatory to have them. I don't want these kids to feel that they're doing this program, and something like this, it is a sensitive matter, and I feel their age group, with everything going on with their age group, puberty, I think it is a sensitive situation, and I don't see, doing one bathroom is going to really break the bank here, but it'll make an impact on the student that brought it to the attention. It's just my opinion. I don't know where the board's going to go with it, but I definitely agree with Kevin. Just leave it Cedar Drive. The younger schools, I don't think it's necessary.
Jason, you look like you have something to say.
You said the quotes have gone down?
We're looking at, because the original quotes that were brought for the board had all 3 grade levels. And then we were like, we think the 8th grade ones are fine.
6th, 7th, and 8th.
It was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so we're revising it. They're bringing it down for new quotes.
So you're saying 8th grade has
Partitions,
partitions already?
correct,
So it would be 6th and 7th?
correct.
Okay. That's it?
I don't think it's a large quantity here.
Right.
Probably, under 10 or.
Okay. All right, so the quotes, if we went out for that, would be significantly less, of course. Okay, yeah.
So just
All right, good.
Again, but,
Just proceed.
all right.
So, I'm going to say
Question is,
something.
Never mind.
So I think that, Angelique, to your point, it's great that we have student representatives that are bringing these things to the board's attention, right? And we definitely do not want to be dismissive of any concerns or not that, to not be looking into any concern at all, period. That being said, I think that it's important that as a board, we move forward in a logical way with any concerns. And I think trying to develop maybe a plan for how we do that. So for something like this, I think maybe there needs to be, and again, just throwing an idea out there, but perhaps maybe a need for a survey. How many other students, are interested in this, because as Mary Jane said, all of the bathrooms have stalls in them. So there is a way for the students to have their privacy in the bathrooms. It's not that any of our bathrooms don't have those private stalls. So should we do a survey to students? Is that maybe, you know, an option? Or to parents that maybe can report back and say whether or not their students or their children have, you know, any concerns about this? You know, just to get a larger temperature. We know that there was one student that brought the story, but are there more? Because if there's more, then maybe there's a need for us to get more, to put it in the elementary school or the primary school. So just might be one avenue for us to go ahead and try and mitigate these concerns. Something else I think is worth us considering too is to have them in the middle school. So we're having the students first 2 schools that they're in through our district at least, and potentially if they transfer in here, they don't have them, then they'll have them, and then come into high school, they don't have them. So something that we talk a lot about here in this district is, are we setting our students up for success in the future? So are we setting them up for success to be able to have the same accommodations in high school and also in the real world, where there aren't really partitions between urinals as far as I'm aware. I spend a whole lot of time in the men's bathroom, but so just some other considerations I've been thinking about in revisiting this topic. Not saying that we shouldn't move forward with it. I just don't know that moving forward and putting them up fully addresses the concern, perhaps, because I don't know that we know what the full concern is if it expands into other grades, into other schools, and for other students. And if it does, I don't want to not address those concerns as well. And it seems like it may have also been something, if I recall, for the parishioners, like the more we get, you kind of get like a discount on them. It's not just like per unit and that price stays the same. I think if we had more, it was less, if I remember correctly, but I'm not positive. So if that's the case, then should we be addressing it on like a district-wide level if that's the direction that we choose to go in? So just some food for thought to throw out there.
I understand your concern about, like, you know, going from Cedar Drive to the high school, but, you know, their age group that, you know, we're trying to address this in is a, you know, puberty age group. In high school, I don't think, you know, there would be as much of a concern, you know, as it is in the Cedar Drive Middle School. So even though I, you know, respect your opinion on we're setting them up and they're not going to have them in high school, but, you know, their awkwardness is going on for this one child. And like I said, I don't want to disregard, even if it's one child. If he feels uncomfortable, all the money we spend on all these other things, I don't see why we couldn't spend a couple of dollars to at least make 1 or 2 bathrooms. If kids are, you know, uncomfortable about using your urinal, they could, you know, even if we decide on doing 1 or 2 bathrooms, they know that the bathroom down hall A or the 8th grade hallway, they know that it's available in there. So, like I said, just my opinion. I just hate to disregard a suggestion where a child feels uncomfortable.
Not at all. Not at all.
We do have a single bathroom also, right, in the middle school? I think just like so, you know, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's not no accommodation for any one child or a whole grade. So I guess in the essence of how are we moving forward, is there any thought on entertaining more questioning about this to see if there's a broader scope to it, or specifically where the need is? Do we want to just move forward with getting a more streamlined quote and then putting it on an agenda for a vote? What is the board's?
Let's do 6th and 7th grade and get quotes for 6th and 7th grade.
For 1 bathroom in each grade?
Yeah,
1 bathroom in each grade.
right.
Yeah, there's bathrooms in each grade level, each hallway.
Right.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay. Is everyone in favor of that? Straw poll here? Yeah, Rich, sorry, I can't see. Yeah? Okay, all right, perfect. All right, number 5.
Your light's not on. Okay. Thanks to Mr. Moretta for putting the LED lights in all the parking lots. Saved the district a lot of money. I think he also borrowed some trucks from the county to do it, go out there and do it. My concern is, it's fine, but I think we need more lighting in all 3 school districts, all schools in the parking lot. Going to these functions at night, it's still dim, still dark. A lot of comments from different parents. It's really dark out there. Going forward, long-range planning, maybe we should get a study on some professionals. What would it take to enhance the lighting under long-range planning, financial planning? What would that look like? Lighting is part of security. The more lights we have, the better. Also for video capture, for any security events that happen around the schools, lighting's critically important. So that was my thought. Enhance the lighting at the schools and get a scope of study for that going forward and bring that cost in front of the board and see what the board thinks.
May I jump in? So when Mr. Walsh and I spoke about that, I immediately thought I was speaking with Mr. Marasco and Mr. Moretta, and we agreed that we would want to bring in basically an electrical engineer who can give us a little bit more expertise about like what might be required in a public space, what would be a good idea. So proactively before the meeting, Mr. Moretta reached out to the county. They just very similarly had a type of study or a type of evaluation done behind the Hall of Records and Freehold. And so they were going to put us in connection with and do a little bit of research about what they would be willing to do or ask about for our parking lots. So stay tuned with that. We'll bring more information probably for the 13th, the 11th COW meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments about the lighting in the parking lots? All right. Communications. Amy.
All
Can
right,
you take us through
sorry,
that?
going back and forth between the agenda and my screen. So number one is the committee name change, the additional goals. We actually, Mr. Capasso and I did talk about the goals and some language, and we do have a meeting tomorrow to discuss the changes so that we could bring that through the next work session in December. So stay tuned on that. Number two is the parental engagement. I know Brenna had touched on it about the parental advisory committee. Hopefully we do have someone changing of the board that will kind of step up and come to the next meeting just to kind of take over on that role since we've kind of changed the coffee chat back into the parent advisory and the parent academy and dissolved the coffee chats effectively. Number three, we have the live meeting, the streaming. So we do have to discuss again, and I think maybe we'll discuss this more at the meeting tomorrow, Dr. Garibay, is the personnel responsibilities with the live streaming. So I know it was a goal of the current board to really have the live streaming up and running right away, but there were some things that were kind of disregarded before it started that were discussed beforehand as far as whose responsibility it was to do the live streaming. Mr. Capasso has really taken it on, but it's not within the scope of his job responsibilities. So there has to be some consideration in that regard as to who is going to be responsible for it. And if Mr. Capasso is going to continue to be responsible for it, how does that get absolved into his job responsibilities? So I think that's something we need to have some discussion about.
All right, so board, I know we talked about this, I think it was back in August, right, Amy? It was in August that we talked about this?
I believe
For the
so.
personnel?
Time flies.
Yes. As far as,
We just have to be careful about talking about job responsibilities and things like that without a rice on us. Yeah.
but we talked about, what is what is involved in putting on the live streaming when we talked about, step by step how it all goes down. And then,
May I?
yes.
What I'd like to do is for the 13th and maybe in advance or through an update, share just a complete list with regard to setup and time and different things like that, because with regard to a cost, one of the things that was a mission of the board was to do this at a lower cost. We invested in the microphones because that was feedback that we had received from the community. But there is an allocation of time that goes into the setup, the monitoring, and the close down of everything. So I want to just give the board a picture of what that looks like. And moving forward, wanting to obviously, maintain it, hearing the good feedback from the community, how can we do it with continuity and with regards to respect to personnel who have those responsibilities to do that and monitoring. We also want to go back to protocol. I do have a county meeting coming up with a regional, many of whom also do live streaming. And we want to maybe revisit some policy language in the event of, when and if we aren't live streaming, when and if we have to end a live stream, what warrants something like that. And also when it is illegal, because we never want to infringe upon, freedom of speech or anything like that as well. So we want to just make sure that we're covering our bases with what we're doing and, doing things appropriately in the right way. So I'll prepare that with Mr. Capasso and Mr. Petrillo and bring that back forward to the board for consideration and just in terms of talking about it.
And the goal will be to have that by the CAL meeting in December.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. All right. Any questions about that?
Yes, I just have a question. In regards to the setup, I know Mr. Capazzo's, I don't know when his shift ends. This is set up before he leaves for the day, or?
He's currently doing it.
Yeah, I know, but this setup of like the mics and everything is like before he leaves the building for the day, and then he
Right.
initiates the actual live stream on the YouTube from a remote location.
Right, so from a timing perspective, I want to do a breakdown of what the time is for the setup, for the testing, the setting of so on and so forth, because that, again, without going into too much of it, I want to
Yes, I
see what the role has evolved, right? Because there's been an expansion of responsibilities, not replacement of. So I want to make sure that we get an idea as when we, the concept of innovation and doing things differently doesn't sometimes remove other obligations and responsibilities it adds to. So what does that look like now in the time and day and the scope of work? So we just want to get a picture of it. So when we're always talking about resources and how we're allocating our resources, I just want the board to have a picture of it, that's all.
And has to be someone that's manning it to make sure that in case we have to cut the live stream or when we end, to make sure that it is cut at the end, once we all get up and start our chair.
Okay,
time,
and
if the day's
we
ended.
can't do it directly from here. Like, you wouldn't be able to do it as, from this location.
We have done it from here. I have done it from here, in the absence of them being able to do it remotely or from here.
Okay.
I think sometimes, and we can get into a bigger conversation about that. I think that it's about what we're doing, like the command centers we're creating here as to what they're, and not wanting to do anything like that. So I think it's prudent for the board. We took this on, it was up, I think, February, right? February or March. So we've been going through it for a year. So it's evolved, it's changed, it's broadened. So let's get a scope of what it means for us to be doing it and what it entails for it to be done and, how we're going to proceed moving forward.
All right, any other questions or comments about that? No? Okay. All right. Amy, the newsletter I think you're up to?
Yeah, so we talked about kind of restarting the newsletter. That was a kind of a joint effort with Mr. Walsh on the committee with the seniors. So I think that just going forward, that perhaps it's either something that Mr. Walsh would like to kind of take on, and I can help him in the next month with some of the recap of activities, what's going on. Obviously we want to be sensitive to photos that we're sharing of children in the school, but also want to, as Mr. Walsh has expressed, that he wants to involve the greater community in our school district.
Amy, I'm no newsletter publisher. You were great at it. I fear I wouldn't be able to do you justice in putting that letter out, to be honest with the whole board. I don't know if anybody would want to show some interest in doing that.
Is there anyone else that wants to volunteer for that at this time?
Maybe the new board members would want to volunteer.
Maybe it
once
will be.
they get on, like I said, I'm not going to speak for them, but when they come on, maybe we would like to offer it to them.
Idea. So we're not going to be putting out any newsletter then until January, I guess, on that note. I guess that's what the...
We do have a meeting tomorrow to see if there's something that we could put together. So perhaps there's a framework that we could get together for the new committee members and new board members, that there's a framework. I do actually have a framework of what we put out before. So I could present that again to the board perhaps tomorrow. And it had, there's a certain flow that it works with, where there's areas for little blurbs and updates and photos of that sort. So I could share that tomorrow and see if that's something we want to continue with. we try to be consistent with the school colors, certain fonts, things of that sort.
That's great. I think, Kevin, since a big push of this was to involve the seniors for it, not that I'm going to give it to you to take over, but maybe you could home that format that Amy's going to set up, and then it can kind of be your torch to pass to whoever else maybe would want it come January. You can just house it, live with it for a little bit, look it over.
Prove it.
Yeah.
I'd like to learn a little bit
Yeah,
about it,
absolutely.
certainly, but social
Yeah.
media is not my,
Yeah.
So I could send,
Yep,
I
absolutely.
can send the format that I've been working in so far, and we could tweak it from there. And the program that I use, we could actually work collaboratively on it.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right. And then number 5, update.
Do you want me to speak to this, Amy?
I was going to say, Mr. Capasso, I don't think is there, so
No.
if I don't have an update, that would be on
So part of the meeting tomorrow is that Mr. Capasso is preparing a really a comparison of something that I know Mr. Regnetta, when you were a part of the conversation over the summer, it's come to fruition where we feel like he's comfortable right now, has vetted through the process of different vendors, looking at different websites, looking at different things to make a really strong recommendation to me to review, to look on behalf of the board. And again, the goal was to improve excuse me, communications. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I apologize for it's just gonna get deeper and worse as the night goes on. So, no, excuse me. For an update to the website that has different levels also of communication. In other words, what we're looking to do, one of the things that we're excited about, pushing out through notifications, texts, and all of the things, and streamlining communications, which was something we heard from the Parent Advisory Committee as well. So again, Amy, we're meeting tomorrow with Phil. And I didn't know if you wanted to ask Ms. Dillon if she was available, if she wanted to as well, because communication was something we heard in the Parent Advisory as well. So it might be something from that perspective, lending that lens, that we can talk about it in the Parent Advisory meeting as well, saying, you know, these updates are coming. And then Mr. Capasso, respectfully, will likely be able to present at the December 11th COW what those findings were and what's being talked about in tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, actually, and I think what would be a great idea, again, coming off the heels of this election, is Brenna, absolutely, I think, you know, it's important for you to be there if you can. I know it's last minute, but also anyone else that wants to be part of the Parent Advisory Committee, and just in general, even if you don't think you have the time commitment to give to it moving into next year, if you have any interest at all in order to be able to then go ahead and be there for these conversations, so that there is a, you know, that nice even bridge there, so that it serves our district well in that changeover. So if anyone else can make the meeting as well, so that they're, you know, we have that information, there's no need for this to be repeated, and all of that. So I don't know if there's anyone else that can make the meeting tomorrow, in addition to Brenna, of course.
Yeah, Mary Jane, because my question was going to be if we would have that information to present at the COW for the next, yeah, so it'd be great, because I think
Okay.
that Jason had mentioned that we'll start talking about the budget for next year, and I know that the discussion will include some budget changes with changing of the website, so that'll be great.
Okay. Thank you for that, Amy. All right, any questions about that? Any comments? Any more discussion? No. Okay. Moving right along to curriculum, Brenna / Mary Jane.
Okay, so for Brennan and I have been speaking, Dr. Reynolds couldn't be here this evening, but with regards to, there's a request to say with regard where we are with our comprehensive health and physical education to date. Thus far, the only health lessons that have been implemented and put out for parent consent is 6th grade cycle 1. All students participated. There were no opt-outs of that particular lesson. Upcoming lessons in 6th grade cycle 2, it's the end of December. Kindergarten's December, and 8th grade January. We continue to track and reach out and speak and stuff, and we'll be sharing that data as the year unfolds. Another update from that is the 8th grade, and I think we're going to be coming back to that conversation
Yes.
at the number 5.
Yes.
So I'm just giving the current information regarding that. New this year, in accordance with NJSA Chapter 35, is an additional piece of grief in our 8th grade curriculum. The law requires each school district to include instruction on grief in an appropriate place in the curriculum of students in grades 8 through 12. Well, we really only have one opportunity to do that as part of the district's implementation of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in Comprehensive Health and Physical Education. It includes information on the physical, emotional, and behavioral symptoms of grief, coping mechanisms, and techniques for handling grief and loss. We're infusing these things into supports and where it fell naturally in the 8th grade curriculum, and that will be part of things that are identified for our parents. So we just wanted to make you aware of that update. Fall benchmark data for NWEA MAP. We're tracking that, and there has also been a data review that's been going on, much as we talked about. Dr. Reynolds spoke during the presentation that we are working with our fall benchmark data to kind of look at students in terms of identifying students for different programs that we have, whether it's enrichment or, intervention. And all of that is, ongoing on common, with regard to our common assessments, following that all into that. I'm sorry, I don't want to rush. Questions on 1 and 2? I apologize. CUSAC update, instruction and program. One of the things I just wanted to, and I know we approved it, and I think I mentioned it, but I want to make sure because it was a public attachment. IMP was an area, what happens in those DPRs, we do a self-assessment and say, yes, we do all of these things. We give ourselves a score. Then in January, they come back and they want to see all the evidence to say, okay, show us that you do all these things. You notice in IMP, there was a 40. That is because those other points come from scores that the Department of Education inputs into those DPRs. It's not because we are scored ourselves as a 40, it's because we're not able to add that information in ourselves. So that's all of that is pending. I just wanted to make sure that that was all going on, and now everyone understood that. Mr. Walsh had reached out to me as well with regards to planning for Summer Bridge. There's a lot of, it sounds funny talking about budget, but we do right now start talking about these big things that are coming up. Remember that Summer Bridge for the past 3 years has been fully funded by a grant. Those grants are gone. So just to give you an idea, and we've had a lot of positive feedback and influence in the children for offering those summer programs. But just to give you an idea, in the 22-23 school year, Summer Bridge cost $85,348. In the 23-24 school year, it cost $78,737,000. And then last year was $84,644. So this is a big ticket program that's been fully funded by grants. So as we're developing the budget and wanting to find ways to keep it going and having these programs going, just know that it will be a consideration as we're putting everything into that large consideration bucket. That's something that we're going to be looking to continue to make sure that see if we can sustain the program without the grant funding. Okay?
What is the data? You're data-driven. Do you see them meeting the expectations at next grade level after the students attend the through program?
We're seeing it in the fall benchmarks. We're seeing a sustaining, and I know that Dr. Reynolds, we maintain that data for impact because that was part of our reporting that we had to do for the state. That are we showing that there's minimal regression going through, just reinforcing those skills. So we watch those things. So are we seeing that? We do see it. And I think it depends on the student, but overall we do see improvements, and we also do benchmarking. In that very small time, we'll give them an assessment at the beginning and at the end, and we see growth. So I think...
How many students attended last summer?
Off the top of my head, we had our largest group last summer. I want to say it was almost 100 consistent, like every... Yeah, so it's a lot of kids. Yeah. Okay. So again, just wanting to put that on the...
And I know, and I think Dr. Reynolds spoke about it, but part of the survey was asking if parents would be interested in sending their kids for a nominal fee also. So just in case people forgot that was something that was being considered also.
Yeah, that's an option that we can consider, because remember the first year was a competitive grant that we won, and we weren't sure that we were going to be able to fund it the following year, and we did. And then we had another competitive grant, and we won. So it was one of those things. Nothing has come down right now in terms of that. Doesn't mean it's not going to be available, but nothing has come down yet for it. Okay.
As far as that paying for a nominal fee, the Summer Bridge program is almost like a more better camp almost. And the parents have to pay for camps anyway. So for a nominal fee, maybe to look into that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I think we can be creative. I don't think we ever want to. We're not in the business of taking things away from kids, right? Opportunities for kids. So I think where there's a will, there's a way, and we'll try to figure it out within the boundaries of what we've got going on.
Sure. And if
Yeah.
there's anything in the budget,
Yeah,
capital,
absolutely, absolutely.
to try and balance it out.
And I think just worth noting too, based on last meeting's presentation on all of our standardized testing results, we know that the summer bridge program impacts that in a positive way. We know that those test scores are higher because these students get that boost during the summer bridge program. So, there's a bigger picture too when we look at things like seeking out those, different rewards and standards for our school district is that, our students are meeting those points. And so it's a great program. I'm sure that we will find a way to make sure it stays. Any other questions or comments about summer bridge program? Okay. Where are we at? Number five. There we are. School Ethics Commission. All right. Do you want to start? You want to start? Do I want to start? Who wants to start for this one?
I think you kind of took the lead on the conversation
Okay.
last time, so if you
All
want
right.
to start.
All right, here we go. So just to recap everyone, there was a public advisory opinion that our district received. We were not the ones that went out and actually initiated it. Thank you for that word. But we do have it. It's been in Mary Jane's updates for everyone to review. I hope everyone had a chance to review it. There was a lot in that advisory opinion. If you read it, it wasn't just one question and then a simple answer. There was a lot to unpack. There was, I think, even several opinions kind of woven in there. And so we talked at the last committee of the whole about seeking a second advisory opinion and whether or not that would be in our district's interest to do that. Remember, the advisory opinion, it's not a legal opinion, but they can give us some more insight as far as what would be the outcome if our district chose to take, or any district chose to take those actions. And so for myself personally, when I read the advisory opinion, I do still think it's in the district's best interest to seek a second advisory opinion. And I think that the way that the advisory opinion was worded, again, there was not just one simple question of if a district moves from an opt-out to an opt-in, what are the consequences? It was more in depth than that. And so I think that getting something that's simpler would be the avenue I would like to pursue. So throwing that out there. Obviously, we have this information. Currently, we had no opt-outs for this school year starting. We know that last year we had far fewer than we did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I think we had one of the highest for second grade. We had a huge number of second grade. Yes, which was the first year of the new curriculum. So just to be clear, so 2 years, that's all we have data from because that's when the new curriculum came out. So 2 years ago, we had our highest was for second grade. Last year, we had, I want to say we had 10 students or so total throughout all of the health curriculum that opted out. Don't quote me exactly on that number, but it was very low, where the year before it was in the 40s, I believe, just for second grade. And then now this year, again, we only have the sixth grade data to go off of, but I think I've made this very clear previously. I'm still in favor of us moving to that, again, so long as we know that we're not doing anything that's going to put our district in jeopardy. And so my rationale for that is I think it makes sense to be an opt-in versus an opt-out for sensitive information like this. And as noted last time, we're essentially operating in that manner. What I like about moving to an opt-in versus an opt-out is that right now, since we're already practicing that, as we know, what we do here as a board goes beyond us 9 people sitting here. It's for future boards, it's for future students in this district, it's for future administration and future staff. And so I think that having something that's not just something that can be changed based on who our administration is or who our current board is really sets things, a little bit more solid. Yes, I'm aware, another board can come in and can change it back to an opt-out if that's the way we went. So that's my position on it. As always, I'm open to everyone else's, opinion and input on this. That's why we're having the discussion. That's why it's an item here. So all of that being said, Brenna, I think you wanted to add something to that, or
I was
go in a
kind of
different
just going to give an
direction?
intro.
Okay,
but,
go for it. Sorry.
But I can add.
Okay.
Not that I really
Do
have
it.
anything
Do
to
both.
add, but I guess I was thinking as you were saying that, since we really are already doing, like you said, we're operating the way that honestly we want to be operating, it sounds like, and if you're trying to change the title, I understand looking to the advisory opinion so that, no reckless decisions are made in the new year. But I think maybe also when you put in that request for the advisory opinion, maybe along with the question, if you include how we are presenting our forms right now, I don't know, just, as background, and to
background.
like help further explain,
Our position or what our
and just
predicament
kind of
is.
how it's just kind of comes down to a title. I don't know if that would help your case or not, but it might just be helpful.
To chime in, I want to make sure everyone's aware. We essentially use a permission slip format. If you think about it like a field trip, right? Your parent gives permission to go or doesn't give permission to go. That is what's happening in the health curriculum forms that go out. They identify the dates, right? Especially at the elementary and primary levels, the dates, the subject of the lesson, and as recommendations, I think we talked about in communications, linked to the curriculum, linked to the changes are now in this form. So a parent has to say, yes, my child can participate in the lesson on this day, and all of them are checked off, like they're individualized, or no. Or in the middle school, I want to say it's probably like upcoming, here are the topics that are going to be discussed, that type. It's a little bit different in the middle school. But at the elementary and primary school, then it's what lessons do you want your child to participate in this lesson? Yes or no. So it's very similar to a field trip. You're either going on the trip or you're not. You're either in that lesson or you're not. So I think that, as you said, we are operating essentially in that opt-in model. So I guess from an advisory opinion point of view, what we're challenging is the application of the law, which says that they can only opt out. I want to just be clear as to what I'm working with, because I would definitely certainly want to loop in our board counsel on the wording of what I'm asking is that what is the I want to make sure I'm clear with regard to, are we challenging the application entitled to say it's an opt-in? Because in practice we're doing that. We're giving them the full ability to select whether or not they want the student to participate in what lessons on a specific day that they are occurring. So I'm just trying to, so that's what I'm just wondering for some clarity on.
Go
That's
to
all.
an opt-in, if we're able to. How the implementation, how would that change? Is class not going to be offered unless so and so many students say yes to it, or is it just takes one student?
No, that's not what we can do. We're not permitted to. That's something I think that is in the. And again, is that something we want more clarification on? With regard to, we don't have an option not to do it as a school district.
Again, and also the other question with opt-in is it parents have to seek this out, but that's not the case, right?
No, we send it to them.
As much as I originally wanted an opt-in, it doesn't seem like there's a practicality for it now.
I think we get very granular, and that's something we're always looking. We get very specific with what we're doing because we understand what the concern was completely. We understood that message very clearly, and so we provided it as an option. So because originally, in the past, and we always had it. In 5th grade, there was always an opt-out option. And then when the curriculum changed, we went to, and in conversations with the board, went to a full yes or no. We even moved into, we removed the language that said if you didn't respond, it was an automatic yes. That's not an option anymore. You're going to respond, or there's going to be a follow-up for us to say, please confirm your choice in this. So we certainly do a lot of outreach to our parents. We want to make sure that we're getting their, a confirmed decision on them and opting, doing what we want the board in terms of that direction. So I think that I'm just looking at no issue with regard to seeking an advisory opinion, a second as a follow-up, but just with clarity as to what it is that we're asking based on our current practice. Maybe that's what I'm asking for.
I mean, it sounds like, and I don't know, Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're just looking to alter the title, which I don't even know where the title is really used necessarily. I don't know if it's...
what would it change being an opt-in for parents?
I don't think it would change anything operationally.
Exactly.
Nothing.
So
It changes nothing for the way that our
Right.
district is currently operating.
Right.
Again, it's in the title of it being an opt-in versus an opt-out.
Is there even a title anywhere? Is it titled opt-out somewhere specifically? Like, is there anything stopping anyone on this board from saying it's technically an opt-in procedure? Because, I don't know, it's just seeming silly.
Allison?
If we're already doing what the majority of the board wants to do, then why would we spend legal dollars to get an advisory opinion on something that we're already doing? It doesn't make sense to me, and it seems like it's a waste of money.
My only thing is, I think that whether you get I'm worried that if you don't get the opinion, or let's say you get the opinion about changing the title and you find out that it would be still be a violation, I'm hopeful that maybe that information would be useful to the future board. So that's why I'm not necessarily
Don't change the
opposed.
title.
Right.
Just leave it.
But I just
If we're
think
doing what you want anyway,
they'll
why
probably
are we
change
going
it
through all of
regardless.
this? But
I'm just
it-
thinking ahead, and I think that there won't be much thought put into the repercussions of that. So I'm saying maybe it would be good to have on record what it probably is, but maybe it would, if there was an official, no, you shouldn't do that, maybe it would save the district money down the road from whatever repercussions they would face. But that's where I'm at.
And not that it's our job, but it could help other schools as well, too, who are thinking about this. But it's not that it's our job to help other schools like that, but I'm just saying it could.
Yeah, I know we're always concerned, about being responsible with money. I know a lot of people, just to recap, I ran a campaign to get elected in this district on the fact that I was going to fight for an opt-in option here. And I know that, in the record that you're saying that, we didn't get that many people opting out. But I do believe if we did do an opt-in version, I think people would be more alerted to, why do I need, to opt in? Do I, and look at it more? They would, if I got something asking me about, do you want to opt your kid in, I would look a little more closely at what they're talking about. So like I said, I think we should get the advisory, the advisory report. Once again, we got to, see if the whole board agrees on it. But I hate to backtrack on what I ran to get elected here. I know a lot of parents do like an opt-in version in this particular community. So that's my opinion.
Mary Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't get the permission slips for my children, since my children are not in the district taking health classes, but I don't believe that the permission slip that goes home now, that language would change at all based on what we're discussing right now. That would still look exactly the same.
Well, just to interrupt you, hold that thought a second. I haven't got my daughter's yet, the opt-in, as far as I know. I didn't get it in an email, but I definitely feel that, I lost my train of thought.
So 7th grade wasn't a curricular change.
Oh, okay.
So that's why there wasn't,
Okay,
it's general
that's what I wanted to
topics.
say.
Yeah.
The thing that, kind of bothers me on the survey, they ask you why you're opting your child out. They give you a few. Okay, I didn't get it. That was something I really disagreed with. Like, we shouldn't really, persist on why someone wants to opt their child out. So I'm glad you said that. I was unaware.
But in general, I don't believe the language would change on that form, because the form essentially is saying, are you giving permission for your child to take this lesson, right? Is that?
So
am I
currently, it's,
understanding it correctly?
I have the sixth grade, for me, because I have the sixth grade form up right in front of me. It's called the sixth grade health permission slipped. So are we looking to just change the title to say opt-in form? Like, that's, I think, like, I don't know that's what I'm looking for, because it's a permission, I'm looking at it, if we take away what the concept is, right? And we specifically outline, and I've seen the forms for the elementary school, and I think we linked them in the update, I'm not 100, right? With regard to the specific language on the specific days, you can, and it gives parents a lot of flexibility, which we would, so like, okay, this lesson, yes, this one, no, right? And we wanted that transparency and that understanding of it. So I think that if you think about it in terms of a yes and a no, you're still giving, you're opting in or you're opting out. And this way we're very clear with, there's no ambiguity as to if someone didn't want to opt in or someone didn't have a chance to or didn't understand. So I think I'm just looking for what changes our processes for it.
Right? Yeah, no, that's correct thinking. Any input from the board on what would change?
I mean, again, I think if you're thinking of it like a field trip, you don't get a form home that says, would you like to opt your kindergarten child into the apple picking trip? You get a permission slip. And I think that parents take that slip just as, seriously as they would take a opt-in titled slip. So, I see both sides, and again, I still think if the board is looking to move forward with changing the title, then I think it's important to just get the opinion and show what our form looks like and just state we are looking to change the title, because that's really all you're looking to do. But I think it's not necessary, but,
Any other input or discussion on this?
I know you probably can't answer this, but what do you think a legal opinion would cost on something like this?
From our current board attorney?
Yes.
It's going to be their hourly rate based
Okay.
on, and then however many hours it takes for him to draft an opinion.
Okay.
So,
I mean, like I said, I'm always worried about money, but the fact that we don't have, I haven't seen our board attorney, we don't have him here for, I think he was here for one meeting, so the fact of all the, money that we saved that he's not at the meeting, the fact of using him for an opinion for the, for this particular thing, I don't see it's a big deal.
So proactively, I shared with Jessica that I did reach out to him, knowing this is a conversation. He does have the advisory opinion, and I said it was a potential conversation, and did ask that, is there any legal opinion or advice he would give to the board
based on that.
based
format.
on this right now? Is it, in other words, is it still where it is? Is it that type of thing? So that's pending right now, and I'll share
okay.
that with the board, yeah. So I did
Okay.
reach out to him proactively, kind of saying, what is his legal opinion?
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So and I'll share that as soon
fair
as I
enough.
get that. Mhm.
Okay.
So given that, what I would propose that we do then is wait till we get some feedback from our board attorney to see what he says based on that current advisory opinion. Based on that, potentially seek a second one or a follow-up one, maybe even with our own created verbiage in there for what this district specifically is seeking to do, and then move from there. So hopefully we have that, again, even if we have feedback from our attorney by next meeting, which is in a week. As a reminder, I don't believe we'll have anything for us to be taking action on next week, but I'm hopeful that at the first meeting in December, the next committee of the whole meeting, we'll have all the updates and we'll be able to move forward with it from there. But
And the legal opinion might also render different options, that it might not be something with an opt-in or an opt-out, but on a different level of advocacy, right? That you could seek an opinion on with regards to we want to focus on what the concern is and what the goal is. So let's build around that. You know what I mean? We're implementing the practices that here that do have a very similar opt-in feel to them, but understanding that perspective, we can explore other options as well.
Okay, let's see what he says and go from there.
is everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
No, I know you're not, Allison. All right, so we'll wait to hear back from that, and we'll have an update in the December CAL meeting. All right, any other comments or anything for curriculum? No. All right, moving on to finance. Jason, Vince, what do you got for us?
Did you want to comment on any of this? So really, the first one is a reoccurring item from the September 11th CAL meeting, which has to do with a proposed meal charge policy. And so, although our district doesn't participate in the National School Lunch Program, it's recommended that a district reviews and adopts a policy consistent with New Jersey law, which is 18A 3321, pertaining to students who are in arrears on school meal accounts. Okay, so simply put, having a policy structure and some clear guidance will help in our management of unpaid meal charges, and it'll add consistency and uniformity on how we deal with that. And so we provided a sample policy, which essentially is almost mirrors the Strauss-Esme policy 8550 from Homedale for the board's consideration. It's the language almost verbatim speaks to the statute itself. So really, it's again, it's something that I think should be considered by the board to maintain uniformity and consistency.
So I think from the board perspective, we were looking to say, is it okay if we bring forward something to the policy committee, and for the next COW to say, like, you know, is it all right if we put this forward as a first draft, and then in December maybe putting as a first read, if everyone's okay with it?
I was just going to ask if we can move, like, I feel like it actually belongs in policy, but I see now.
It started in finance into policy, right?
This is the transition.
Is there any objection based on them for us moving it into a first read and doing a draft of it and proposing it to the board?
No.
Okay. The next item is the future of preschool expansion aid. You know, there's a lot of conversations about there, and again, we had this conversation at the September 11th board meeting, that there are necessary steps that our board would have, decisions that our board would have to make in order for us to even be eligible for preschool expansion aid money at this time. The primary thing in looking at that, not just in addition to the changes that it would create for our programs, there's a lot to consider, our existing preschool program, I should say. But the first thing that we would need to do is we would have to go into the National School Lunch Program, because we're not eligible if we're not in it. And Vince reached out to Advocate, which was our consultant that we used, and he can work to put some real numbers together for us about what it would be, and then bring that back hopefully maybe in December to the CAL meeting to kind of give some consideration. But it's just, I think we have to do a little bit more intensive, not just about the numbers and what it would be about. There's a programmatic component to this as well. So I just want us to be really mindful of that. Jason, yours, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed being part of the National Food Program at one of the, CAL meetings, but, right, like, my major concern was just the change in the quality of the food to the children, because I think, I don't know, I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't.
Advocate's going to work with Pomptonian to show what those changes would be, because
Right.
we obviously do have put a lot of time and effort through our wellness committee,
Yeah.
and for a long time standing, it was a priority of the board to change prior boards to be able to say, listen, this is what we're offering our kids and our staff every day for as options for lunches.
Right, yeah. I
And
mean,
so we want to,
I think
there's
that
a lot to consider.
Yeah, I think that would be I think that would be the biggest focal point, and if the food quality is diminished in any way, that's it.
And then there's also program ramifications as well. For example, currently right now in the PEA structure, the required structure of the state, related arts takes second. So right now, our parents, for their tuition fee, get art, they get music, they get physical education, they get all of those things. Those things are not permitted in preschool expansion. if you're getting preschool expansion money. So it changes our program
Okay.
a lot. So I want the board to see, and a lot of other things too, facilities, there's requirements for different things. So it has its good points, but there are things that come along, there are strings attached with the money from the state
Yeah,
that
which-
change our programs.
And it may not be, yeah.
So I think we just need to take a deeper dive in it, but we're just letting you know that we are in the background working on it, putting together a proposal. They haven't put out another round yet for it, but I just want us to be prepared. Eventually, what we are hearing is that it's going to be compelled anyway. So there's a part of me that sometimes it's not, you don't always have to be the first to be doing things, you know, and plus when it's coming with some attachments, I don't know what it's going to look like. So
Yeah, okay.
keep in mind, we're also balancing, it is free preschool. It does offer free preschool to the town.
Is that something that maybe we need to also consider with potentially more students?
100%.
Just throwing that out there.
I mean,
My feeling is we shouldn't be held to any state mandates.
right.
School district, we move here for a reason. I don't think we should
Yeah.
be obligated to meet every string attached to the state. That's my objection personally, as a board member.
100%
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
But we are held to those state mandates, so if we want to talk about not being held to those state mandates, then we're talking about not having state funding, which is a whole nother topic in itself, but just to be clear.
yeah. I mean, free preschool is great. I mean, but look, I think when my children went to preschool here, it was $12,800, and then it was $1,400 or $1,500 for busing, and that's times 2. And I did those numbers for I think like 2 years or for each of my children. So it was a ton of.
Investment.
Yeah, well, it was like $55,000, whatever it was. It was worth it because, I mean, the pre-K programs, pre-K 3 and pre-K 4, they were excellent. You know, they were excellent. And I really didn't have to worry about, you know, it was a great program. And I feel like, yeah, you know, it's like free would have been great. You know what I mean? But if it comes with a bunch of state mandates and caveats and all this other stuff, it's
Just to be clear, are you suggesting that pre-K is going to be mandated by the state when kindergarten is not mandated by the state?
That's correct, Mrs. Ramirez.
yeah,
As
Yeah.
I'm listening to Jason talk, I'm like, wait a minute.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Just
right. So like I figure,
kindergarten's not mandated, but pre-K will be. That seems backwards a little bit, but.
and that's the state of New Jersey.
So in addition to a mandate, if you take preschool expansion, you have to bus.
Right.
So that's another layer
When we're already in a busing
when we're in a busing
Yeah.
shortage here. So there's a lot of things that go
Yeah,
on with
and
this.
right. So like, and in our pre-K program now, it's an option, you know. And if the parents want their kids bused, it's $1,400. If they don't, then they drive them to the school here, wait in line, and that's the
Right.
the way it is.
So we're going to put together, Amy, I think
Amy
that's
has
her.
her hand up. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, this is a great topic to add to our advocacy committee. But this is something that I think sometimes we can make a change, we can get in front of our
Legislators.
You know, we really can make a difference, so that perhaps this is something that we should put on the advocacy committee to really go full steam with. Because it is kind of ridiculous that pre-K is going to be mandated when kindergarten's not.
Yeah, it's
So it's a stay tuned moment for us in
okay,
terms of
okay.
putting all the information in front of the board so they can make an informed decision.
okay. All right, good.
I want to speak from personal perspective that pre-K does put a lot of financial burden on families, especially nowadays. And if any way that can be alleviated anyway, but I know it puts on the taxpayer. But if it's going to be given a grant, then that's something that I think we should have to look into, especially for our citizens. I know not everybody agrees with me, but that's how I feel. And especially if it's going to be mandated by the state, why not?
Well, I think that having it not be mandated gives the parents in town the choice. Like, I didn't, just because I was living in Colts Neck didn't mean I had to put my kids in pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. I could have put them in, 20 other different private pre-K classes, and I could have chose the times and the days, and there's a lot of different choices out there that the Colts Neck parents could do. I mean, there's so many different private pre-Ks out there that, the Colts Neck parents can choose from. And it's,
So I think that getting some more information, presenting it to the board, and then going from there. Remember, it's not mandated as of now. Mary Jane's just saying that it's coming, it potentially is coming down the pipeline there. So, but yes, as Amy said, I think advocating, this district advocating, if this is something that this board and our community feel strongly about, having it not be a mandate, this way we can, parents in our district can make that decision, then I think that's a great topic for advocacy for that. Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, number 3.
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
Sorry.
Mary Jane has her mug in front of your face.
Vinny and Jason said was, I agree that, with Vinny, that it would be great to have preschool for parents available, and I also agree with Jason that we shouldn't have the mandates, but I sent both my kids through the preschool, and it was phenomenal. So if we can offer that to the children of Colts Neck in the way that my kids went through preschool, and the way that I assume Jason's kids went through preschool, that would be wonderful. So I think that would be something we really should look at for advocacy, to try to take those mandates away, but also be able to still offer it to the children of our district.
Thank you.
that would be amazing, but I don't think that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and let's be clear, I would just actually made a nod. We can do that, but we'd have to budget 100% for it to run a program. And when we get into the budget, you'll see what the preschool line runs. So you can do that. When we did that, remember going back to bringing the conversation full circle, looking at when we had that first demographic study from 2015, they were projecting us going way down. And the board at that time, we got together and said, you know what, let's build a preschool
Right.
and bring them so they come and stay here with us and
Right.
carry on through kindergarten once they're here. And that's what we did.
Right.
So we built that program with the anticipation that parents would enroll their students in preschool, have them here and stay through kindergarten,
Right.
and have the kids together on the same campus, all the things.
And look, it's not like every parent, every parent can say, no, you know what, Colts Neck Pre-K is expensive, so I'm going to put them here, I'm going to put them there, and it's a third of the price or a quarter of the price, and that's their prerogative. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. Like Pre-K, yes, in Colts Neck right now, it's a choice. It's a choice that the parents can make themselves. Hey, do I want to spend this a year? Can I afford this a year? Okay, if not, then I can go somewhere else. I can go somewhere else. So.
All right. Moving along, number 3. And Jason, one of you. It's not me.
I have some points on this, but first, if I may, just to go back to be courteous to Ms. Denoya's question earlier about the reserves.
Oh, boy.
I just wanted to call out, because I happen to have the audit in front of us, so I'll just run through real quick the capital reserve account as of June 30th, 2024, which was the end of the year. Capital reserve had a balance of, and these are approximate, 1.6 million. The maintenance reserve account had a balance of 1.7. We did authorize, the board authorized to use $375,000 as budgeted fund balance for this year, so that comes off of that. We also authorized $60,000 at one of the board meetings to handle these big repairs over at the primary school, so balance is about 1.2, 1.3 roughly. In the maintenance reserve, impact aid is about 2.4 million as of June 30th, 2024. Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
So
Thank you
you're
very
welcome.
much.
You're welcome. So as we are beginning to approach the development of the 25-26 school budget, It's worth noting some of the factors known at this time that will impact the budget development. And first is the state budget landscape. So we're being told right now to possibly prepare for a scenario of flat state aid funding. That makes up about 10 to 12% of our total revenues. Also, of course, this is very early on. We don't know what that's going to look like in terms of state budget factors. But I don't think we can anticipate applying for stabilization aid this year like this past year. So our revenue drivers are primarily going to be the tax levy, the categorical state aid, and the use of fund balance. Okay, next, we know there's a statutory 2% cap on the tax levy increases from year to year with certain adjustments. Last year, because the board decided to set the tax levy at its level, we generated $737,000 approximately of banked cap levy. This is permissible under statute that you can use in a successive year. So added to the existing bank that we had, we'll have the ability to have additional tax levy authority in the amount of $1.5 million approximately available for the 25-26 school year. Okay? Regarding any...
Mr. Marsko, I just want to jump in for a minute. When we're talking about, as we're developing the budget and we get into any conversations, we start to put all of the priorities together as we do every single year in each of the different departments and the buildings. And as we mentioned, some of the ticket items that are already before us. The one thing I always want to talk about when we're talking about bank cap is that, remember, from a board perspective, in order to access the bank cap that Mr. Marsko was talking about, you have to go to your mandatory 2%. So it's money that we're generating in what we're allowed to raise a tax levy, but you do have to go to the 2% before you can go to that bank cap. So it's not for conversation for today, but just saying that that's what's there.
Correct.
Does everyone understand that?
It's easier to see it when it's on paper, knowing what's laid out.
So then, regarding our bonded debt, remember there's two components of tax levy. It's the general fund and the debt service fund. So we will be retiring the balance, which is about $4.6 million of our refinanced bonds from prior years by the end of 2027 school year. Okay, this is a key perspective when thinking about the debt service component of the tax levy. So keep that in mind. Conversely, we began this year with the first installment payment of the ESIP, right, which is a 19-year lease purchase installment. So we will need to budget approximately $379,000 for year 2 of the 19 annual lease payments going forward. Okay, and we have other standing lease obligations involving buses, copiers, Chromebooks, phone hosting, various IT licenses. These are all leases that are non-discretionary in addition to pension obligations and settled collective bargaining salaries that will become part of the 25-26 budget. And then regarding the trend of ratables or taxable property in Colts Neck, I examined the preliminary table of aggregates from our tax assessor, and it is indicating about a 13% increase in the value of taxable property. So the trend in rising assessed valuations continues in Colts Neck Township. And then lastly, the other capital items that were mentioned under the B&G earlier will also be considerations in the budget. A budget calendar will be shared with the board in the near future, particularly when we receive dates from the DOE regarding budget and election cycle. And again, this is sort of just, preliminary information that highlights some of the factors we're going to be talking about in the budget development So stay tuned.
Thank you, Vince.
I
Allison?
have one question. Have we heard anything from Brown and Brown regarding health insurance?
No, not at this time because, exactly. It is too early. We haven't even reached 6 months of activity yet through our, current plan to obtain that activity, the Aetna.
So, Aetna, I thought we switched.
I'm sorry. The
Right?
Horizon. I'm
Horizon.
sorry.
Horizon. So
Thank
that started September, I believe?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So that runs September to September? Or does it change again in July?
It's July 1st to June 30th.
No.
No, because we started it late. So that's what,
Oh, right.
is it running September through July and then it kicks in the new rates in July?
Yes.
September to June,
Yeah.
June 30.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that was the
so
question that okay, thank you.
In March, we can,
You'll get an
have
idea.
discussions from.
Very good.
from
And,
there.
well, just in time for budget season.
Right.
And again, for the board to keep in mind, I think it would be advantageous for our board to put together a budget ad hoc committee, so something for us all to start thinking about who wants to be part of that. So that some of those more in-depth conversations then can be pulled out and brought forth to the full board. Anything that warrants those deeper conversations. Otherwise, I do anticipate these COW meetings at that time of the year taking a very long time for the finance section, so that would be my strong recommendation. All right, anything else for finance, budget, any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, policy. Okay. All right, I'm up, and this is kind of just an update. It's a quick one, right? Yeah.
Can we go?
Okay, good. No, God, you go. You got it pulled up there.
Okay, so on my update last week, I provided a recap to the board of this process of transitioning everything from Strauss Esme into school boards. So it's detailed in there, including how numbers are going to change, the process. We are working towards that. You will see that will eventually, and I'm giving a little bit of a precursor, that is going to be one of the district goals this year, is to have a successful transition of all of our policies, bylaws, regulations, all of those things that are going into for next year. At this time, what I just want to make sure the board is clear about, there is a large role that the board will play when the review process has to happen. And what I mean by that is that I will work with school boards to make sure that we have everything. We are going through the custom language, everything, but at some point we will probably have to work with the board and then assign people to just make sure that everything that we want is captured in the new set of policies before it is then uploaded or released into board docs. So which is where it will be the new platform for us. There's a lot of districts that use board docs, so I'm looking forward to utilizing it, and there is an onboarding process for that. But there are approximately 780 policies, regulations, and bylaws that are, some are boilerplate that have not been, changed. They're still the same policy, but just understanding that the language they're not the same. So after we do this, we will also be engaging in a process to make sure that the language that is in the school board's policy mirrors what we want to have. I will be working with internally to make sure that we have captured all of our current policies, and they will be live through Strauss Esme through the end of the year. So that was intentional, and for that, and I thank the board for that transitional piece of it. So as we continue through that we can just more eyes on it. So I'm just putting it on the radar of the board, signing up for saying, hey, this is what we want everything to say at this point in time. And then we can go through it like we do normal policy to be able to say, all right, if we want to make changes, we can. I would recommend as we're going through it, that policy changes that don't come out as mandates, once we start that transition, we'll have to set up a cutoff point and say, okay, we'll update after we complete the transition, because then I think it might get a little bit muddy, and we don't want to lose critical updates or things that may happen, okay? So just staying tuned and be on the lookout for the updates, because there's information that I just wanted everyone to have on that, okay?
I also just want to put a lot of emphasis behind this because obviously this is something that was near and dear to my heart and us changing over our policy holder, but also policy is what drives our district. And we have so much custom language in our policy, and it's why our district in a lot of ways is different than a lot of other districts because we customize our language. We don't just take what the state puts down. We don't just take what was recommended by Strauss Esme and now it will be recommended by New Jersey school boards. We customize that, and that's why in the past, our policy committee, and now as a board, we review each individual policy. There's an importance there, and so I can't stress enough how important it is for our board to be able to work and review each one of those 780 plus policies and make sure that that language carries over and that it's still reflective of what it initially, the purpose was. Because again, that's essentially what us as board members are charged with creating and carrying out and making sure that it's being followed. That's kind of where we're all at and why we sit here. So just wanted to stress that. Again, I kind of do anticipate us, whether we do a policy committee, policy ad hoc committee, or if we divide it up into smaller subgroups, I'm not sure what would be the best way. I'm open to feedback on that for what board members think would be best, but that will definitely be coming down because there's just far too many, I think, for us to sit here and go through during committee of the whole meetings.
Excuse me, Joe, what's the deadline for that, to have that all?
So it's going to be July 1st is essentially
So yes and no. So we're going through the process. They're still in about a 7 to 9 month transition. They're going to start the end of this month, they said, and they have us in the docket to begin to take and see what policies we have. So for example, I don't know, give me a policy, 7,500, right? Use of facility, whatever it is, like that type of thing, use of facilities. That's a bad example because it's the same one. So, but it's going to be the same stuff. Some of them that are numbers. So if you're looking at the chart, 6,000 right now currently is finances. 6,000 will become instruction, right? So whereas they're going to say, okay, you have policy 6123. I'm just throwing out a number right there that you currently have that. 6123 is now this in instruction, but they're going to look to say 6213 in instruction is now going to become this number. Here was your language in your 6123. This is now what our language says. Do you agree with what the language is? Because we're not just changing the numbers and the titles, we're changing in some of the policies, the language, because school board's language differs from Strauss Esme's. So we just want to make sure as a board what school board's policies are saying encapsulates, like captures what we want. In advance of that, I'm working behind the scenes with school boards already to identify what policies we have that have custom language in them. Because then when they convert them into the school board's model, they will take our language with us, with it. So to make sure that it's there. So
the ones that are not custom language, but perhaps at New Jersey School Boards has a slightly different version of than what Strauss Esme would have had.
we will just get the new version.
But then I still think it's important that our board review those to make sure if they're not.
Absolutely.
We still have
Yeah.
to review them as though we would if it was something that was coming down from Strauss Esme, for us
Right.
to adopt or if it was new,
Right.
Look at. So, yeah.
And school boards, there's going to be some overlap. So they will condense as well. They will say if there's, policies that if they can they have already merged that. So you may see some policies being removed and then it being replaced by one of school boards.
So, Dr. Garibay, has New Jersey School Boards provided you with recommendations? What I mean by that is, we have 9,000, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? Right? Through 9,000 in our policies. And school boards has less numbers. So have they given you guidance on what gets combined or where things go? And
We'll get a complete crosswalk
Okay.
about things, and they'll say, this became this, and now this, that, and everything. Like so, once I see that, they gave us a sample template of what it will look like. So they walk you through it. We're not the first district has done that. It's just a case of getting used to. And then once that process is complete, so from your timeline, to go back to answer your question, Strauss Esme's contract ends. They don't give on June 30th. where we are in the process is where we're going to be in the process. Like I said, we're working internally to make sure we capture all of our things. So if we're not ready to launch board docs come July 1st, we still are going to have our policies in place, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
until
could
we're ready to
we,
launch.
You know, when they send this over to us, can't we go like, you know, if they have like 20 done
Yeah.
already, piecemeal it instead of sending us 1,000 policies?
We get them all at once. It's an all at once dump.
Okay,
They
I
do
was
like
trying
it,
to-
yeah.
this way we could just get it
Yeah,
done faster.
no,
We
it
could just
doesn't.
take a portion of it.
Yeah,
and
it's
then go faster.
yeah, it's kind of like
Okay,
it's kind of like a data for them. We'll get it all at once, but I'll take some time before it gets to the board to go through and organize it and whatnot. But then, so the to use your word, a muddy time period might be the summer, which is okay, because what we're also going to have to be doing is there's many handbooks, there's many references to things, a board policy that are on many forms, on all those things. So they're all going to have to go through a process of revision once we know what the new language in the policy says, and then have it documented accordingly, so on the new forms.
And there is a purpose of them doing it that way, if I recall from when we initially met with them. I believe it was because, since there are some that come together and right, so for them to give us 20 at a time or whatnot, they might then need to pull one of those and put it in with another one. So that's
Yeah.
why I think they do it
All together.
comprehensively like that, yeah,
Mhm.
if I recall.
Mhm.
All right, any questions about that? All right, personnel. Take it away, Mary.
Personnel is just an indicator of things to come for there. The one thing that is also good too is that we do believe we have a custodian that we're going to be bringing on next week, which is good too, the hiring next week. So that's a positive.
Any questions about the personnel items or anything, Mary Jane, just updated on? All right, new business, does anyone have anything?
Yes, I want to revisit, you know, in keeping with elevating our kids, I mentioned about the honor rolls, the students, and I know honor roll is going to be closing within a few days, I believe. And I wanted to see if we can move forward. And we don't, like I said, but I'd like to work on one. Anything to help kids feel empowered, you know, a little something to recognize them, even the kids that aren't making high honor roll. It's just maybe something to strive for, to be recognized at a board meeting in front of the town, you know, and show off our district that, you know, kids are succeeding. And I don't know if the board would approve of that, but I certainly would love to implement something like that, recognizing honor roll and high honor roll.
So are you asking for it to be at the board meeting? Or
Yeah,
or
I
just a
believe,
general
like I said, they
school
get
ceremony?
recognized at the school.
Right.
You know, I think they get like a little, like, you know, not like a little certificate, yeah, which is awesome too. But I just feel maybe, you know, presenting them here would be, you know, exceptional opportunity for them in front of the town to be recognized.
Number for how many students are on honor roll? For high honor roll?
Off the top of my head now, I don't know, but I can get it.
I mean, like I said, you know, we could pick, it doesn't have to be right at the end. Obviously, we're not going to be able to coincide with the end of the marking period, but, you know, whatever we can do to get it done, if people agree, I think it would be something nice to do.
We'll continue the conversation with some ideas.
Okay.
Let's see when a good time would be for the district to, whether it's end of the year, end of the school year, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
Brainstorm some ideas.
Okay, not to add more work to our, but, you know, I think it would be good.
I have one new business piece of it, and it was actually the constituent who spoke earlier on, which was with regards to the request for the dates. It was brought to me, it was an email to me, so
yes,
talking
yes,
about it. So I just wanted to make sure that it was on.
Yeah.
The other thing was that during
Changing
our
of the dates of the meeting.
Yes.
For those of you who.
Yep, alternating with the township
Yeah.
meetings. The other thing was is that we had during our Veterans Day ceremony today, today and during the week, we know that a huge part of our community that extends bridges between the high school and our district is the ROTC program that's at Colts High School. And Major Penzak has been a fantastic partner with us. He is retiring at the end of this year. And as we've started a tradition of giving plaques and different things to our schools, I'd like the board to consider honoring him at a future board meeting before he retires in June. He actually also just got a 50-year service award for service to the country recently as well. So he's been a valued partner and, a big part of our school community and celebrations, demonstrating character, service, and patriotism to our younger students is important. So it's something that for the board to consider later on. Okay?
And as I found out on Monday when I attended the Veterans Day event, our high school has I know I'm going to misspeak because I don't have my notes, but it was a number one program in New Jersey.
The country.
The country.
The country.
Yes.
All right.
So kudos to Colts then. So that was a pretty fun fact. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I think that's definitely something for our board to consider.
One last thing, if nobody has anything else. With the new president-elect coming into office soon, I know he's speaking a lot about changes at the Department of Education. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the table with that and how it will affect this district. I know the governor here isn't too happy about it, so definitely foreseeing some backlash from him, and I'm glad we have a strong incoming board here to combat whatever his plans are for the last year of his term. So that's it.
Any other new business? All right, then I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, everyone.